When it was time for me to graduate, I did not want to move to LA and work myself up from the mailroom because that doesn't really happen for African Americans, especially at that point. And you have to remember, I finished Morehouse in 1979, so it was a much different climate as far as filmmaking goes and how much inroads we've made as African Americans front of and behind the camera. Not so much for African American women, but it's a very different landscape. At the time I was in film school, the only African American director in Hollywood who was making films was Michael Schultz. You should really check out his film, a very much overlooked filmmaker. He directed a lot of the great films for Richard Pryor. Directed Cooley High, one of my favorite films. Michael Schultz was the only director working in Hollywood. So in the film schools where I began to learn about Oscar Micheaux, you should all know who he is. He's the grandfather of African American cinema. So you go from Oscar Micheaux, Melville Van Peebles, Sweetback, Gordon Parks with Shaft, Ossie Davis. These are really the pillar upon which all of us, you know, are trying to move forward. Those, you should really check this stuff out. And I think one of the drawbacks that we don't do as filmmakers, African American filmmakers, we got to know what the foundation is. And I'm going to make a lot of sports analogies, so forgive me. But the great players, you ask Kobe Bryant knows everything about everything that's ever happened in the NBA. He's a student in the game. So as you're a filmmaker, if you're trying to be a filmmaker, you have to understand this is a craft, and you don't have to go to film school. I'm going to say it again. You do not have to go to film school to be a filmmaker. The only reason why I went to NYU, because at that time, we did not have this digital technology. Then, the greatest obstacle to making films was getting access to equipment. And so my generation went to film school. We did not go to film school to get a degree. A degree, an MFA from NYU or USC doesn't mean anything. When you come out of film school, if you're a director, you need to come out with the film. If you're a writer, you need to come out with a screenplay. If you're a DP, you need to come out with the reel. So we didn't care about the degree. We wanted to come out with the film. And again, my generation, it was for the digital technology, so you had to get access to the film. By going to film school, you got access to the equipment. Your crew was your class mates. NYU and all film schools have agreement with SAG, so you got to work with actors free. Didn't have to pay for actors. And you also had access to the facilities to edit. So that's why I went to film school. And Ang Lee, great filmmaker, Ang Lee and I were in the same class. Also, another person instrumental in my development as a filmmaker, the great cinematographer Ernest Dickerson. You all know who Ernest is, right? Some of you don't know. Google, go to IMDb for Ernest Dickerson. And Ernest and I were the only African Americans in our class. It's a 3-year program. Ernest and I, besides being the only brothers there, we automatically bonded because I'm from Morehouse and he's from Howard. So right away, I saw Ernest had a great eye. Right away, I knew Ernest was the best cinematographer in the school, and I said, "You're shooting all my films." So he shot my first film called The Answer, then the second film, Sarah, and then my thesis film, Joe's Bedside Barbershop, We Cut Heads. Now, it's a 3-year program. Again, Ernest and I understood that we got to come out of school with material. Degree doesn't mean anything. Ernest had to come out of school with the reel of films he had shot, and I had to come out of school with a good thesis film. Ernest always wanted to direct, but he felt and correctly guessed it that his quickest way to being a director was being a DP first. And also another thing Ernest and I understood is that, which was drummed into our heads by our parents, that we cannot be just as good as our fellow white classmates. We had to be 10 times better. It's not fair, but that's the way it is. You ask any successful African American, they will tell you it was drummed in by their parents Grandparents, only family members that you had to be 10 times better. Just being good enough is not going to make it.